What happens when a single moment of arrogance unravels into a storm of consequences? In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and friendly waves masked simmering tensions, one woman's outburst set off a chain of events that no one could have predicted. This is the story of a neighborhood teetering on the edge of civility, a tale of pride, prejudice, and a truth so sharp it cut through every facade. It was a crisp Saturday morning, the kind where the air smells of fresh-cut grass and coffee wafts from open windows. I, Marcus, stood on my porch, sipping my second cup, watching my wife, Elena, jog down the street. She was a vision in her navy tracksuit, her ponytail bouncing with each stride. Elena was more than my partner, she was my anchor, a woman whose quiet strength could calm any storm. But today, a storm was coming, and its name was Karen. Karen Whitaker lived 3 houses down, her pristine colonial home a shrine to her self-proclaimed authority. She was the neighborhood's unofficial watchdog, her eyes always scanning for infraction-mode lawns, loud music, or, in her mind, the ultimate sin, disrespect. Nobody crossed Karen without a lecture, a petition, or, as we'd soon learn, a 911 call. Elena, oblivious to the brewing tempest, jogged past Karen's house. Karen was out front, pruning her roses with surgical precision, her lips pursed in perpetual judgment. She waved at Elena, expecting the usual nod or smile. But Elena, lost in her music and the rhythm of her run, didn't notice. To Karen, this was no mere oversight, it was a personal affront, a deliberate snub in her carefully curated kingdom. "Excuse me." Karen's voice sliced through the morning calm. Elena didn't hear, her earbuds drowning out the world. Karen's face reddened, her pruning shears trembling in her grip. She stormed inside, phone in hand, and did what Karen did best. She called the cops. I didn't know any of this until later, when Elena returned, her face a mix of amusement and exasperation. "You won't believe what happened," she said, peeling off her earbuds. "Some woman yelled at me for not waving back. I didn't even see her." I laughed, thinking it was just Karen being Karen. "She'll get over it," I said. But Karen wasn't the type to let things go. An hour later, a police cruiser pulled up to our driveway. 2 officers, young and earnest, stepped out, their radios crackling. I felt a knot in my stomach. Elena, however, was unfazed, her calm demeanor almost unsettling. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson?" one officer asked, glancing at his notepad. "We got a call about a disturbance. A neighbor reported someone ignoring her and causing a scene." I blinked, confused. "Ignoring her? That's why you're here." Elena stepped forward, her voice steady but laced with a quiet authority. "Officers, I'm Elena Thompson. I was jogging this morning. If this is about Karen Whitaker, I didn't see her wave. That's all." The officers exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, she claimed you were aggressive, maybe threatening. We just need to clear this up." Elena's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Aggressive? I was running, with earbuds. Maybe Karen's the one who needs to calm down." I expected the officers to nod, apologize, and leave. But then Karen herself appeared, marching across the street, her arms crossed and her chin high. "That's her," she declared, pointing at Elena like a prosecutor in a courtroom. "She disrespected me, ignored me completely, and I won't stand for it in my neighborhood." The officers tried to mediate, but Karen's voice climbed, shrill and unrelenting. "I demand you do something. She can't just act like she owns this place." That's when the twist came, subtle at first, like a shadow moving across the sun. A third figure approached from the sidewalk, a man in his 60s, wiry and unassuming, with a baseball cap and a slight limp. His name was Tom, a retired mechanic who'd lived in Willow Creek longer than any of us. He rarely spoke, but when he did, people listened. Today, he carried a small notebook, its pages worn and dog-eared. "Karen," Tom said quietly, his voice cutting through her tirade. "You sure you want to push this?" Karen froze, her eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean, Tom?" Tom didn't answer directly. Instead, he turned to the officers. You might want to check who you're talking to before this goes any further. He nodded toward Elena. That's Chief Thompson. As in Chief of Police. The air seemed to thicken, time slowing as the words sank in. Karen's face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The officers stiffened, their hands hovering awkwardly near their radios. I felt a surge of pride mixed with disbelief. Elena rarely mentioned her job, even to me. She'd been promoted to police chief 6 months ago, overseeing the entire precinct, but she never flaunted it. To her, it was just work, not a badge of superiority. Is that true, ma'am? One officer stammered, his face reddening. Elena nodded, pulling her badge from her pocket. The gold shield gleamed in the sunlight, its weight silencing the scene. I didn't think it was relevant, she said, her tone calm but firm. I was just jogging. Karen's bravado crumbled. Two didn't know, she sputtered. You should have said something. How was I supposed to know? Elena's gaze was steady, unflinching. You didn't ask, Karen. You assumed. And you called the police over a wave you didn't get. Maybe next time, try talking first. The officers apologized profusely, their embarrassment palpable. They tipped their hats to Elena, muttered something about a misunderstanding, and retreated to their cruiser. Karen stood frozen, her hands clenched, humiliation radiating from her like heat. Tom, the quiet observer, gave Elena a small nod before slipping back to his house, his notebook tucked under his arm. I thought that was the end of Ida. Lesson learned, a neighborhood drama resolved. But life, like any good story, doesn't tie up so neatly. Over the next week, Karen doubled down. She didn't apologize. Instead, she spread whispers through the neighborhood, painting Elena as arrogant, a power-hungry chief hiding behind her badge. She posted on the community board, rallying sympathizers, claiming she'd been targeted by an overzealous cop. It was absurd, but lies have a way of taking root in fertile ground. Elena, true to form, didn't engage. Let her talk, she told me. Truth has a way of catching up. But I saw the toll it took: the late nights at the precinct, the quiet moments when her smile didn't reach her eyes. Karen's vendetta wasn't just about a wave. It was about control, about refusing to admit she'd been wrong. Then came the second twist, the one that broke the story open. Tom, the unassuming mechanic, wasn't just a bystander. At the next neighborhood meeting, he stood up, his notebook in hand. I've lived here 40 years, he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. I've seen people come and go, but I've never seen anyone try to tear down someone like Elena Thompson. He opened his notebook, revealing pages of meticulous notes, dates, times, incidents. Karen's complaints weren't new. She'd called the police on kids for skateboarding, on a family for a loud barbecue, even on Tom himself for parking his truck too close to her driveway. She's been bullying this neighborhood for years, Tom said, and nobody stopped her. Until now. The room fell silent. Neighbors who'd once nodded along with Karen's rants shifted uncomfortably. Tom's words weren't loud, but they carried the weight of truth. Karen's face burned red, but she had no retort. For the first time, she was exposed, her authority stripped away by a man she'd barely noticed. Elena didn't gloat. She didn't need to, but the damage was done not just to Karen, but to the fragile trust of our community. People stopped waving as freely, their smiles tinged with caution. Karen retreated, her house dark most evenings, her roses left to wilt. I wanted to feel triumphant, but all I felt was sorrow for Elena, who'd faced scrutiny for simply existing. For Tom, who'd carried the neighborhood's secrets alone, and even for Karen, whose pride had built a cage she couldn't escape. One night, as Elena and I sat on our porch, the stars bright above, I asked her why she hadn't told Karen who she was from the start. She looked at me, her eyes soft but resolute. Because it shouldn't matter, she said. I'm not my badge. I'm just Elena. And that should have been enough. Her words hung in the air, a quiet indictment of a world that demands titles to see worth. I reached for her hand, feeling the weight of her strength, her grace. But deep down, I knew the scars of this ordeal would linger not just for us, but for Willow Creek, a neighborhood that once felt like home now felt like a stage, where every gesture could spark a war. And Karen? She never apologized. She moved away a month later, her house sold to a young couple who waved at everyone. But the bitterness she left behind stayed, a reminder that pride can poison even the smallest moments. Elena kept jogging, her head high, her earbuds in, but I noticed she always waved now, even when no one was looking. Nd.